YouTube and hello Ninth Age community. This is Charles with Evershade Gaming, and today I wanted to talk about some Empire Dannstahl lists. I've been meaning to play another Empire Dannstahl game. Part of not necessarily the trouble, but part of the kind of time it takes me to actually play a Dannstahl is just putting a list together. Considering you got to actually get down on not necessarily pen and paper, but you just got to sort of write it all down and points it all out and make sure it's legal in the areas and not over budget anywhere, and it just takes time. And it's also a little tough because there's a lot of things I want to try with the Dannstahl lists, or just the Dannstahl book. It's a bunch of different new combos that are available to Empire players in that homebrew, and in that sort of prophetic vision of the future of the possible Empire of Dannstahl. So I sat down and I put some lists together, and my idea is I want to present them in a video real quick, and I'll let those in the comments, and I'm probably going to post this on the forum too, suggest which list I should try next. And so I kind of wrote three different types of lists. I think the last one is sort of pushing the edge of what maybe should be allowed, but also we'll get to that when we see it. I'll see what its limitations are too, combat-wise. So the first list I wanted to talk about was this cavalry list I wrote. I think everyone who's followed me on Evershade Gaming has noticed that I like my Empire cavalry. I like to play with cavalry blocks. I think they're really fun. I've had some pretty decent success with them in tournament settings and casual games too. So this is a cavalry list using the Dannstahl rule. So I think the important thing to talk about cavalry in Empire is probably the biggest change was that a knight commander no longer makes knightly orders a parent unit. Instead, electoral cavalry start out at 10 models and they're just automatically a parent unit. So you don't really have small units of electoral cavalry anymore available to you. You just have a block of electoral cavalry. And the nice thing about the electoral cavalry block, at 10 models, it's well priced. It's let's scroll down a book. I have the Dannstahl book open because I know I'm gonna probably try and reference some things. But the Dannstahl electoral cavalry, almost there, is, for 10 models, you're paying 255 points, which is very reasonable. Great weapons are free, which is great. And they come with shields. Fantastic unit in their own right. So in wanting to try them, I have, the only BSP available to you still is a regimental commander. He's sort of like a marshal, but maybe a step down in stats wise. He's got a horse, he's got paired weapons, he's a BSB, you pay for that with him now because he's just cheaper overall. And you've got the Alchemist Alloy, the Dragonbane Gem on him, and the Hero's Heart. So he's got 4 strength 5 attacks, he's got pistol 2 just because I had 5 points. Standard BSB with a 1-up on a horse. And then I took a Wizard Master on a horse too, who's got light armor, he's got the Basalt Infusion, he's got the Locket of Suna and the Magical Heirloom with Cosmology. I thought it'd be fun to try this. He's a little expensive. You probably could, if you wanted, break up those 2 casters into 2 smaller casters and take 2 different paths of magic, and that could probably be as good, but he's a little bit different with the Locket of Suna. And then my general is a Knight Commander with he's got a shield, he's got a free horse, he's got the Light of the Sansa, and he's got the Dust Forged. And he comes out at 380. He's going to go in the big unit of knightly orders, or I don't know about big. The 11's large, I don't know about big. And then I also have another Knight Commander. He's got the Black Steel, the Winter Cloak, a Halberd with Kingslayer, Potion of Swiftness, and a Young Griffin. So the reason why I would want to take the Black Steel is Young Griffins do not cause fear anymore. So now you can actually put the fear-causing Black Steel on that model, and it's not a sort of waste of points, which I actually appreciate. Because one thing I cannot stand is putting redundant things on characters, where either, I've seen some builds where people put like the Imperial Seal on a Marshal and give him a shield, give him Dust Forge, and I like that he's got a reroll 1 arm save, but the fact that you're paying for that extra shield, of course, it's only 10 points currently, it's just I don't like it. But I do like this build. He's got a 2-up, 5-up with distracting. He's got Kingslayer and Halberd, so he's strength 5. He goes to strength 6 with 5 attacks against any character, and he's got a potion of swiftness, which is just helpful overall. And then I have an artificer on a horse with a repeater gun, which they had a really interesting change to the artificer in that he doesn't have an order anymore per se. Now he just has a kind of a soft buff built into his profile where if you're in a support unit that's been joined by him, you reroll ones to wound. And if you're mounted and you join a unit of riders, that unit, he gains Vanguard and the unit gains support unit. So I've been wanting to try this because I feel like that is a cool build. I also like that he just has heavy armor now. That's, I think, great. That seems very thematic too for an Empire character, just have heavy armor because... So going into my core, I took 13 Electoral Cavalry. I wanted 15, but I ended up having to cut some points to be about 1130. So I took 13 Electoral Cavalry with the Great Weapons, Full Command, and the Stalker Standard. I took 10 Regimental Marksmen with the Champion. And when you take a Champion with Regimental Marksmen, they should have handguns. Your Champion gets a free upgrade on his gun. So you can either take a repeater gun for free or a long rifle for free. So I took a repeater gun. Idea is run handguns, small unit handgunners. And then I have 11 Knightly Orders. They have Lances, Full Command, and the Stalker Standard. That's where I'm imagining the General goes. I have 4 Knights of Sun Griffin with Lances, Champion, Musician, and that's where I'm imagining the other Knight Commander goes, depending on matchups. I mean, the other Knight Commander could just be a cowboy on his own. And we have the 10 Riders with heavy armor and repeater guns. This is where the Artificer will go to make them a support unit. And we have just another 5 Riders with a brace of pistol. We have the Monumenta Suna with the steel and the gunpowder, so a 1-up armor save and an artillery up. And then we have a volley gun. So I'm thinking, the Artificer can buff the volley gun, and then he can make the Riders a support unit. I really feel strongly with the Empire Dannstahl book to have an equal, sort of the 1-to-2 ratio of parent units to support units. Sort of because, that's the way it's set up, where you have 1 parent unit and it buffs 2 support units next to it. And I feel pretty strongly that if you are taking parent units, you should be trying to maximize, I would say, your support unit, ability to buff support units. So in this, my 2 support units are my 10 Regimental Marksmen and my 10 Riders. So I kind of like the idea of having this big unit Electoral Cavalry, sticking my Wizard, sticking my Regimental Commander in it, and sort of being maybe the center of my force. It's okay in combat. It can't really fight everything, but it's got a bunch of strength 5 attacks, and the BSB's got a few more strength, a few more higher AP attacks. It could hold its own a couple of fights. It's not going to die to chaff. It's not going to beat Death Stars. But he's buffing the Electoral Cavalry, which is then buffing your marksman, your shooting in this list. So I feel like that shooting could be a little bit more flexible for this, faster knight list. And then you just got sort of 2 elite-ish, knight units. The nice thing with the regiment or the knight commanders is their buff for the Knightly Orders or the Knights of Sun Griffin is those units get +1 offensive and defensive skill now. So they're actually a little bit tougher now. Especially if you're running Cosmology. Now Altered Sight on those units, now you're hitting elite units on 3s, which is actually quite impressive. So I like that buff. I think that could actually help tip the scales in a few fights across different armies. And I think, the idea of this list is you have some shooting, you have some magic, you have some okay-ish combat blocks, you have 4 scoring units, and just, fight your way through things as well as you can. Hopefully dictate most of your charges. Fortunately, it's kind of at Advanced 7. I feel really strongly about putting Stalker Standards on my Knights instead of Banners of Speed. You could probably change my mind on that in the comments, but that's what I like, so that's what I put. And then let's look at list number 2. So list number 2 is, I'm calling it Blocks of Infantry Maximizing the Support System. It's a great name for an army list. I've got a martial general. He's got the black plate, shield, the sword of unity, dust forge, and the mantle of Ular. So the sword of unity is pretty fun. It's kind of like the hammer witches, but a little bit different. Mantle of Ular is the same. Black steel is the same. So the sword of unity is the bear gains +1 attack and +1 AP for each full rank in his unit up to maximum of 3. So this guy's got 6 attacks at AP 4, only strength 4. But of course, I think there's room to uh, buff and improve the ability for him to wound stuff, and mainly doing that by taking alchemy in this list actually, and putting some flaming banners around. So I got a master, wizard master with alchemy, death cheater, talisman of the void, magical heirloom on an arcane engine with light armor, and yeah, so he's kind of my favorite, one of my favorite wizard master builds for Emperor Sandstal, where he's got a 3-up, 4-up, and he's also got now a 6-up Aegis too, which is fun. And then he has like 3 channels. He's got 5 spells. I love him. I think he's very a lot of great utility. Relatively cheap BSB, Willow's Ward, Lucky Charm, Death Warrant to provide battle focus. And then another Prelate with the Armor of the Mithril, Grey Weapon, just kind of keeping them cheap. Also another way to grab battle focus. Prelates give battle focus in the Empire of Sandstal, not hatred. It's an important thing to remember. And I have an Inquisitor with Salt Infusion and Brace of Pistols. Mostly want to just try out Inquisitors. He's totally different now, mostly because you sort of just select a character, and that's who you're trying to kill. That's the witch you want to try and get. He does give flaming attacks to Flagellants or Militia. But yeah, you nominate a single enemy character to start the game, and then and all enemy model, and this on all many models with channels count as targets. So the Inquisitor may reroll to wound with both shooting and close combat against the target. In addition, shooting attacks made by the target gain lethal strike and D3 wounds. So he's always got lethal strike and D3 wounds, but you get that with shooting attacks, and then he's really just wants to kill that character. So it's probably with a 3-up armor save. I'm thinking he, if I really needed it, he could get the buff, +1 armor save from alchemy. But otherwise, I just thought he'd be fun to try. And he's only 155 points, so he's relatively cheap. My core is 45 spears with a flaming standard, 2 things of 10 marksmen with the champion and the handguns and the long rifles, and then 2 blocks of halberds with musicians. And then 23 Imperial Guard with shields, flaming standard, full command. The Monument to Suna, again with faith. Well, actually, I thought it'd be fun to try faith and gunpowder, just because I think it'd be interesting if it has a 4-up Aegis instead of the 1-up armor save. And then 27 flags with the champion, and then 2 things of riders. So I guess my idea was this: is the Marshal goes in the spears, the BSB goes in the Imperial Guard. The Inquisitor can go in the flags. They made a rule where he actually does benefit from Unbreakable when he's in there. But I'm definitely thinking the Prelate goes in the Flagellants. There's some flexibility there too, depending on what I feel like I need. The Prelate could go with the Spears too. And, the cart's going to buff mainly the Imperial Guard and the spears, and then possibly maybe some of the support units when they get in combat. There's just a little bit of shooting here with the 2 things of 10 marksmen and the 2 things of brace of pistols. So I have some ways to reduce chaff, make my charges as good as possible, or probably receive. This army is going to be receiving charges. And then of course you got the Monument Suna, which is just fantastic now with the volley gun. So good. Yeah, that's tough for your opponent just to deal with. So I actually quite like this one. I don't know if I love the alchemy and flaming setup in an Infernal Dwarf meta because that's less good. Granted, there are some things in the Infernal Dwarf's book where having flaming attacks and rerolling to wound is beneficial. Things like the engine. It's not too bad actually there, but overall, alchemy against Infernal Dwarves is not a great matchup, and it would be a little bit harder not the worst thing in the world, but definitely a little bit harder. And then my last list is just a straight gun line. So it's got a pretty cheap Marshal General. He's got the Imperial Seal. He's got a great weapon. He's got Lucky Charm. A Regimental Commander, also cheap. He's got Alchemist Alloy and the Willis Horde with a shield. So both characters got a 1-up. He's a BSB. 2 Artificers with the long rifle and upgraded artillery. Upgraded artillery is this new upgrade where you, after deployment, you nominate a single volley gun or cannon war machine, and then you get to re-roll your failed to wound rolls and the multiple wound rolls with its shooting attack. So really, depending on what you're fighting, depends on what you want that. So if you're fighting a lot of R6 monsters, you're probably going to upgrade your cannon, because the cannon now in Empire of Dannstahl is only strength 7 AP10 cannon. So you might actually want that, which that does help you overall, because then you get to reroll the wound against those, and you get to reroll your multiple wounds. Otherwise, you're probably selecting the volley guns most of the time. So, I think those Artificers are going to be really good in this list. I've got a Wizard Apprentice on Cosmology with a Great Griffin. He's an extra piece of chaff. I've got 2 Wizard Adepts, one with Div, one with Pyro, Magical Heirloom, Book for Arcane Mastery, respectively. And then the core is just all Regimental Marksmen, 2 things of 20 crossbows, 2 things of 20 handguns. The handgunners get champions. 1 handgun unit has the Marksman pendant. And then 2 things of 15 Imperial Guard. These are your parent units that are going to buff all the Regimental Marksmen. Just min units with champion, musician, shield. The one that has the general gets the household standard. 3 things of 8 Rangers. Rangers moved up in price and model size to 115. And then 2 cannons, 2 volley guns. So just a straight up, straightforward, dirty gun line. Obviously, this list has almost 0 combat output. You could, instead of the cannons, you would actually have to drop a Ranger too. You could get a Monument to Suna, but I thought it would be interesting instead to just try cannons and volley guns. And yeah. Oh, and an Engineer Engine, which is awesome. So that can help your artillery, and it just overall buffs your shooting because you get to reroll 1s. So that's pretty sweet. It can actually help you probably split up some of your buffs, where if you've got that Engineer Engine buffing to maybe even 3 things of light infantry, maybe that other light infantry on the far side of the Engineer Engine gets Stars Align or something like that to help its shooting. So yeah, it's to me it seems like a very gross gun line, very unfun to play against, but a possibility within the Empire of Dannstahl book. So in the comments, just let me know what you guys what lists do you think I should play. I would say my preference is I'd love to try this night list to see what I could do with it. But I also think this one is quite good, and I do really like this Blocks of Infantry one with like the 4 support units and the 2 parent units. I think the gun line is you'd have to pick an opponent that would be okay to play that. I wouldn't want to just show up to somebody's place and be like, hey, this is what I'm playing, and we're not going to have all that much of a fun game, but you are going to take 80 plus 16, 32, 6, 8, 48, 40, you're going to take 48 bow shots and 80 strength 4 shots a turn, plus 2 cannons, 2 volley guns, and you just got to get to me. If you get to me, you might win. If you don't get to me, I'm probably going to shoot you off the table. So let me know what you guys think. I thought this was a fun way to sort of propose a list to play for the Empire Dannstahl next. And I'll see you soon with another 9th Age Battle Report.